Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, how are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new Fallout 76 video. So, it is update day. The Ghoul update is here at long last, and service is down, maintenance is currently ongoing, and we have patch notes to look at. So, I am going to go out on a limb, having just started, and guess this is going to be a fairly long video. To try and keep things to a somewhat sensible length, I'm going to skate over a couple of details here and there. I'll give you a chance to pause the video and take screenshots where appropriate if you want to do that. You might well want to in a couple of places. And there's a couple of bits I will go through in more detail in their own videos separately. So, yeah, subs and notification bells, and, well, they're down there, aren't they? But as appropriate. And, yeah, then you'll catch those videos when they go up in the next couple of days. So, let's have a little look at this, shall we? The Ghoul Within release notes. We have a fairly cool ghoul picture, and yeah, there's quite a lot of options in terms of how you can customize your character as a ghoul if you want to. And in other fun news, you can also, if you decide to switch back, you won't lose your old character's appearance. You would switch back to the appearance you had before you became a ghoul. Although when you actually become a ghoul, you will have to create a new look. So yeah, there's an FYI that I'm pretty sure is not in the notes here. And yeah, a whole bunch of details on the ghoul and other changes, and there are many, many of them. So we have between what we're looking at 18.9 on PC Steam, so that'll be me with the smallest size, all the way up to 37.6 if you're on Microsoft Store or Xbox. That's yeah, quite a big difference as per. So ghoulification is the big thing. If you want to completely overhaul the way in which you play the game, the style, the feel, the tone, and start new builds and things like that, refresh your experience with Fallout 76, which I know I am keen to do because, 6.5 years at this point and all, it is time to do that, or an opportunity to do that. To begin your path to the ghoul life, you'll have to pick up the questline Leap of Faith, which will take you to a new section of the Savage Divide. There you will meet characters who will aid you in your transformation. So, minor, tiny spoiler. The location of this is the top end of the Savage Divide, where it sort of opens out at the north end. There are a few new locations up there, which are tied into the Ghoul questline and the new player type, species, whatever we want to call it. Some of these are going to be fine for everybody to go and explore. Some of them are oriented around being a ghoul, which is not to say you can't go if you're not. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I'm not entirely sure. Haven't tested it. I do know if you try and go there to some of these places when you are not a ghoul, you will have a hard time of it at the very least. They are very, very irradiated, so yeah, designed to be very pro-ghoul and very not pro-anybody else. So it's something to bear in mind when it comes to exploring those new areas. Brace yourself. So, completing the questline will complete your transformation, unlocking new ghoul-exclusive abilities, Glow and Feral, as well as giving you access to 30 new Ghoul-exclusive perks, and losing access to a handful of non-Ghoul-exclusive ones because they won't work for you anymore. So, these Ghoul abilities. I'm not even going to try and say the terrible pun on the front there. First up, becoming feral. So, becoming a ghoul sheds the need to sate your hunger and thirst. Instead, you battle against the gnawing desire to slip back into your base nature, abandoning all sanity you might have had. Yeah, might have had being the operative phrase. The new feral meter drains over time and can only be filled back up by using chems, and once it fully drains, you go feral. You may not want to keep that meter at 100% though, as your feral status provides different bonuses and penalties depending on where you are. The short version is you probably either want to be above 80% or at 0. In between, it kind of sucks. So, above 80%, you'll get a buff to your strength, endurance, and max HP of 3, 3, and 30. Above 60%, you'll get a max HP buff of 15 HP, which is nice, but not as good as the other one. And then after that, things start to go downhill rapidly, because at between 59 and 40, you'll get a -1 penalty to your endurance and a -5 penalty to your HP. At 40 to 20%, you get -3 endurance, -15 HP, and -10 AP. That's action points. And when you go feral, that's where it gets really interesting, because you will gain 150% to your melee damage, so big old buff there, but you'll lose endurance. Your charisma will drop by 99, so charming you won't be. You lose 30 max HP, 20 max AP. Your hipfire accuracy with guns will go down the pan by -300%. You will be painting the walls around your target, not the target itself. and you will also lose the same amount of VAX accuracy as well. So you will not be hitting the broadside of a barn with a firearm if you are a feral. What it doesn't say anything about, interestingly, is when you aim down sight when you are feral with a weapon, and don't use that, but just actually, aim in and use your sights. There's nothing mentioned on that. Don't know if that affects your accuracy there or not, or if you just can't do it, or if it would then just carry on as normal. You still get the other negatives, though, so there would be no advantage to it, but you might have slightly less disadvantage. I don't know. It's an odd oversight, that. Either way. Basically, if you're going for a melee build, great. If you're not, you probably don't want to go feral. So, the other ability is Glow. And as you might expect when living life as a ghoul, radiation doesn't have the same effect on you as it does on the smooth-skinned. You are immune to diseases and cannot be mutated by nearby radiation. As a ghoul, radiation makes you glow. So question here, does this mean becoming a ghoul will clear your mutations that you currently have? I haven't put this to the test. I'm sure somebody will put an answer to that in the comments if they would like to. It would surprise me if it did wipe all of them, because the idea that you might not be able to have the marsupial mutation in particular is probably going to offend a hell of a lot of players. So, I don't know. I guess radiation doesn't mutate you. Serums might still. Maybe. So, we'll find out soon enough, I guess. Obviously, I'm going to stream hopefully later on tonight, and or failing that, if the timing doesn't work out, I'll do it tomorrow. But we'll dive in and check out the new Ghoul update and, yeah, pursue this, which should be interesting. So, the new Glow system increases your maximum health and heals any damage you've already taken based on the amount of radiation you've accumulated. So, yeah, being exposed to rads will heal you, which is quite helpful because there's a number of ways in which you can carry radiation inflicting, I suppose, items around with you or have them in your camp. So, there's some good options there that you might want to consider. It also means if you can't get diseases, that you won't need to have a symptomatic in your camp and you won't need to worry about disease cures and stuff. So, that's convenient, because keeping those in stock can occasionally be mildly annoying, so there's definitely some appeal there from my perspective. Your glow can be tracked by the green striped pattern on your HP bar. It's pretty distinctive, you won't be missing it. Consuming tainted foods, drinks, and exploring irradiated environments all contribute to your glow. And as I say, coming into contact with other things that emit radiation, like barrels and asteroids that you might put in your camp, or consuming glowing goop, which I believe will irradiate you as well. If you hear the Pip-Boy ticking, your radiation is hitting. When you're in power armor, your radiation intake can be seen on the RADS dial next to your health. Yeah, if you've got the power armor HUD on, specifically this is. If you haven't, I'm not quite sure how that'll pan out. I guess you'll have to keep an eye on your health bar. Outside of the max health increase Glow provides, it also contributes to perks like Science Monster and Jaguar Speed perks mentioned below. Okay, so yeah, of course we have a whole bunch of new perks for ghouls, and some of them tie into the glow, which is cool. Yeah, it's a fun, interesting effect, and one you can't miss either, because if they are glowing, they are glowing. It's a lot like some of the legendary enemies that have that big green glow with the kind of mist on them, only less mist. But it's quite a cool look. So, Ghoul perks. One of the immediate benefits of living life as a ghoul is you'll have access to a new suite of perk cards which you can use in addition to normal human cards, with a couple of exceptions. There are 28 perks to choose from and 2 new legendary perks for ghouls, for your total of 30. New perk cards can be obtained through the perk card packs or by selecting your level up perk, so the same way you would with any other perks. The cards will open new build opportunities and enhance the way you play. Yes, hopefully variety being the spice of life. Do note that perk cards that revolve around hunger, thirst, and chem resistance will be locked, as ghouls don't require the benefits that these cards provide. Presumably that means you can't become addicted to things? I wonder if that's the case. Would make sense in some ways. Let's have a look at one perk from each special category. All perk descriptions are at their max value. So yeah, obviously, as with other perks, you might need 1, 2, 3-star version of the perks and rank them up. And there are way more. Here's just a look at some of them. So Bone Treasurer is one I'll probably be using, because I'm going to do a melee build. I've never really done one before. Your melee weapon attacks have a 45% chance to cripple a limb. And I did double check this again, because I always have to. That does include heads. Perception. Eye of the Hunter. Your vision grants you plus 30% accuracy in VATS from a very long distance. Now, I was looking at this one as an interesting one. Your first thought, obviously, there is going to be, sniper builds. But truth be told, if you're going for a sniper build and using scopes, you probably don't want to use VATS at extreme distance, because it's just not going to be as accurate. In which case, this wouldn't really help you. Far more helpful is if you're using VATS with, say, a heavy gun against bosses, because you might be at a longer distance, particularly against things like Scorch Beasts. In which case, it would be quite handy for that, because it should trigger then as well. So yeah, I can see that being potentially useful in that kind of scenario. Glowing Guts means irradiated food and drink grant 300% more rads, so if you want to keep your glow up, then it will also, I assume, apply to Glowing Goop if you want to consume that, so that'll probably become the most efficient way to heal yourself and to keep your glow up if you are a ghoul. That'll be interesting. I believe there is something on the Season 20 scoreboards, season pages, whatever the heck we call them these days, that actually provides Glowing Goop in your camp, so that's an option, or worst case scenario, you can always run over to, say, Westec and just farm it up in there. But yeah, that's probably going to be the play, I think, for keeping your health up and your glow up when you're a ghoul. Charisma, moral support. When on a team, you become feral 50% slower. Okay, that's good if you want to avoid going feral and you're a group player. Science Monster is an intelligence perk. While you have glow, you gain 15% damage bonus for 10 seconds upon getting hit. I will probably be using that one, I suspect. Again, this is the fully ranked out versions of these perks. Jaguar Speed, you sprint faster when your glow is high. Okay. And Wild West Hands has a 36% chance to instantly reload your entire magazine when empty. Yeah, nice. Less useful for some of the really, really big automatic weapons like miniguns and Gatling lasers and things like that, because you're not reloading quite as often. But for faster reloading weapons with smaller magazine sizes, it's definitely helpful. Ghoul's Day Out. With these new benefits that help you explore the wasteland, we'd forgive you for thinking that life as a ghoul is easy. No matter how well dressed you are, there are still some factions, like the Brotherhood of Steel, who won't want to interact with you. Playing as a ghoul makes some factions hostile to you, which will lock you out of certain quest lines, ostensibly. Luckily, wearing disguises made by Jay, a new NPC you'll meet along the new quest line, will allow you to interact with any blocked content that you may find while living life as a ghoul. Jay will also allow you to remove the disguise if you so wish. So, I know not everybody's into this particular feature, thinking it'll be a little bit onerous and stuff like that. I have a couple of counterpoints. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as annoying as people seem to think. It only affects specific scenarios. So, for example, when you are dealing with Brotherhood of Steel, if you want to work through their quest lines, either do it before you become a ghoul or lean into it and accept the challenge. To be honest, this does present a certain challenge in that you will have a number of debuffs when you are in disguise, and you can only equip them at J, and you can only unequip the disguises at J as well. So, yeah, it does have its restrictions on it, but restrictions, limitations, barriers to progress, they are the nature of gameplay. If you look at combat, SIG does its own version of that. If you look at puzzles in a puzzle game, they restrict progress until you overcome the challenge. This is just another example of that. And as I say, it's very focused. Basically, as far as I can tell, it's only the Brotherhood of Steel that are strongly going to object to the fact you're a ghoul anyway. The Raiders have ghouls in their ranks, Settlers have ghouls in their ranks, they're fine. I can't see anybody else that it'll hit at the moment. Maybe some Enclave-related stuff might be an issue, maybe. But to be honest, most of the time, once you've done the initial bunch of stuff relating to those two factions, you're done with it, and you won't really need to go back there anyway. There's no vendors at Fort Atlas to visit on a regular basis, with one small exception. That would really only be when you're turning in the technical data quest, and if you're doing that, stick a disguise on, go when you've got a lot of technical data, just go backward and forward, turn that all in, get what you need, and then leave again. It's really not that big an issue, I don't think. I just don't think it's going to come up as often as some people are afraid it might. But it's an interesting idea nonetheless. So, back to humanity. This has also been a little bit of a point of contention. Personally, I think I'm actually okay with the way they've done this, but still. If after a short while you realise being a ghoul isn't for you, then you can become human again through your character screen. Now, the one gripe I have with this is that they were insistent for a very, very long time, and much later than they should have been, that they were going to find a lore-friendly way of switching you back. It seems they have not managed to do that. And unfortunately, I'm a little bit annoyed that they clung to the idea that they were going to for as long as they did, because it doesn't look like that's how that's panned out, and I'm a bit peeved about that. So, yeah, the messaging on that wasn't handled the way it should have been, in my view. Unless I'm completely wrong on that point, and there is actually something more to this than meets the eye, but I don't think there is. Anyway, that's my personal gripe. Please note, this is a one-way ticket back. You won't be able to complete the quest line to become a ghoul again. So yeah, you can do Leap of Faith once, become a ghoul. If you decide you don't like it, you can change back once, and that's it, mostly. It's meant to be a big deal change. Becoming a ghoul is supposed to be a life-changing thing. If you look at it from a lore sense, and they're leaning into it from a gameplay sense as well, it is a really big my life will never be the same again moment. Look at any of the other games, it's kind of has that vibe. So that's kind of what they're going for here. There is a nod here to people changing their mind over time, though, in that for the cost of 1,000 atoms, if you wish to become a ghoul for a second time on the same character, you will be able to spend 1,000 atoms and do that. The other flip side, of course, is if you have a second, third, fourth, fifth character, this doesn't necessarily apply to them until they've gone through the same ghoulification process again. So, yeah, if you want to become a ghoul again, you can do it on another character without incurring a charge. I think this is basically okay. I think just consider your decision before you become a ghoul, and if it's really not for you, consider that thoroughly first and change back. And it's only really going to come up if you keep changing your mind on the same character, isn't it? It's not that onerous a thing, really, I don't think. And there are ways to work around it as well, in form of new characters. Not particularly swift ways, but they do exist. Season 20, Glow of the Ghoul. New update, or new major update, I should say, means new season. Season 20 is here. Lots of ghoul-related rewards and themed bits and pieces for camps, and there's a whole bunch of skins and stuff in there. There's some cool stuff. So, if you want to look at that in more detail, I suppose you could jump into the game and check the pages there, or you could do the cool thing and check out the video I made on it a couple of weeks ago now, so we'll make sure to link that up in the corner as well, and yeah, have a gander at that. Got all the rewards in there. So, moving on, the Big Bloom, starting April 29th, so end of next month. This was supposed to be starting, theoretically, last week, I think, but changes in scheduling being what they are, it's been pushed further back. A new seasonal event, which I have had a go at on the PTS, and it is good fun. The Big Bloom. Basically, you head to a spot in Skyline Valley and help Black-Eyed Susan defend her favourite meadow from Overgrown. You're collecting flowers and killing Overgrown and stuff like that. It's just kind of a fun springtime event, really. In the event that you do want to do this solo, unless they've changed something massive, it can be done, although you will need a very high damage output build to do it, because there are timers involved for each section of the event. And whilst you can complete particularly the first section, which oddly enough is actually the hardest part, solo, the timer is quite short compared to the amount of stuff you have to gather. When you're being hit by enemies and being slowed down in taking them out, it slows down the rate you can gather things. So yeah, you really need to be able to punch through enemies very, very quickly if you want to do this solo. It can be done though. But yeah, obviously this is a seasonal event. It's intended to be done in groups. If you're on public servers, there'll be a whole crowd down there, and I suspect it will absolutely fly along. So yeah, and a whole bunch of, springtime type rewards for players and camps and so on and so forth. So looking forward to that at the end of April. So this is one for another video as well. Level 50 character boost. This is the first I've heard of this, and I'm a little surprised about it. I have a couple of theories on it. The current link here that goes to the article with more information is not available at time of recording, so I'll do a separate video on it probably tomorrow when it is, and I've had time to look at it. So keep an eye out for that one. But the gist of it, from what's here, seems to be that you will be able to come out of the vault and instantly jump to level 50 if you want, as opposed to jumping to level 20, which you can do already. My guess is if you decide to do this, you will have probably an atom charge for it. I'm not the biggest fan. I can see it being appealing if you've already gone through all the base game story and stuff and you just want to blast through it and you've done the leveling thing. If you're a new player, well, firstly, you're probably not watching this video because I can't see many new players watching a patch notes video. But anyway, if you're new to the game, work through the storyline. It shows you around the map, it introduces you to the mechanics, and it's the main story of the game, or the first half of the game anyway. So, yeah, I would encourage you to do that. I think one of the big things they're trying to avoid here is there are some third-party groups, let's say, out there who provide the sort of level-boosting functionality via their own systems and stuff. Such things are against the terms of service, so don't go doing that. If Bethesda find out, they will ban you, and who's to blame them, really? So yeah, I think this is probably a way of avoiding people doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and it also risks the security of your account if you're doing it through unauthorized means, so you're opening up a whole can of worms I strongly advise against opening up, and this will provide an in-house version of it that is safer. I suspect. This is still speculation because I haven't been able to read the article yet because it's not up. So we'll have more detail in a separate video, hit that notification bell, when I actually am able to read up on it. The other thing that's perhaps worth mentioning attached to this is level 50 is not an in-game character by any stretch of the imagination. They will say it is quite frequently, Bethesda, and everything's kind of geared towards thinking it is, but it isn't. You won't even have all of your perks in place at level 50. You're looking more like level 75 by the time you've earned enough perks to max out the ranks on everything you want to max the ranks out on. So, yeah, chances are this is like, well, for 3/4 of the way there rather than right over the line. And of course, if it's your first character, you also won't get all your legendary perks that way. You have to hit level 300 for the first time in order to get all of those. If you've already done that on another character, then you'll already have access. But yeah, it will jump you on a fair bit anyway. But yeah, anyway, more details, another video. So, release notes. This is a weird one. This is bug fixes, balance changes, and all that are kind of lumped in together. I'm not a big fan of this particular organisational style personally, but anyway. I'm going to skate through a bunch of this as much as possible to try and get there before we get too old and grey. And some things in here I will go over in a separate video as well. So we've got a few fixes here for accessibility, if that interests you. A couple of changes to ammo. The big one here is that fully charged fusion and plasma cores and ultrasight versions of can now go into your ammo box if you're a Fallout First player, but that also won't pull it out of your power armor if you have a fusion core in there. It doesn't say whether or not that applies to what's equipped in your weapon, though. Logically, they would have done that, but whether or not they have, it doesn't specify here. Kind of implies it to a degree, but it's iffy. Still, chances are you're going to want to double-check your ammo count when you're using this particular feature, but at least it frees up some room in your stash box, which is always nice if you're a Fallout First player anyway. There are a couple of armor fixes here, which are not massively exciting. The hazmat suit is now in the armor category in the Pip-Boy. It still doesn't count as armor because it replaces, well, I mean, it does count as armor. It replaces your armor, but it doesn't have any armor benefits, so there's still no reason to wear it. But, yeah, unless you're going for a Berserker build, I suppose. Is that the one? The one that goes for low armor. Anyway, moving on. Couple of camp fixes here. They expanded the passive power area rather, for the winter retreat workshop structure. So this is a prefab, a really big house with a kind of winter theme to it. It has a conduit on it that you can connect a wire to, and it's supposed to power the whole structure. But the radius just wasn't big enough to do that because the thing's so huge. They've fixed that, so it now will be. There's a couple of other bits and pieces here that are not massively exciting. Last turbo ferk grenade in a stack will now function as expected if you're using that. A couple of other little bits and pieces as well. Fix an issue where two doors could be attached to the same door frame. That's vaguely interesting in a design. So I saw recently somebody had, well, two doors. One of them was a curtain and one of them I think was the accordion type door on the same door. You won't be able to do that anymore. I don't know if it's going to retroactively prevent that or not, but we'll see. And I don't know whether or not that will account for destroying one door and then snapping another one in it over the top. Hopefully not, and then you can still double up if you want to. On the other hand, they really just slow you down without having a vast amount of benefit anyway. There's not a lot of reason to be doing that. So I don't think it's a major issue. Chances are that it will have a collision side effect when you put two of them in the same door frame, which apparently, from what I hear, has a knock-on effect on performance for the game, which in a multiplayer shared world affects other people as well. So my speculative guess is that that will be why they're doing that. Combat rebalancing and changes. There are a lot of things in here that I'm going to try and get through at a reasonable pace. And as I say, some of this is really going to go in another video because it needs to. However, the first thing here is they've reduced the health and damage output of super mutants, which seems like a terrible decision to me. I'm not entirely opposed to reducing the health of them because bullet sponges and so on, but they're not unbearable bullet sponges as it is anyway. And reducing the damage output means they're just generally making super mutants weaker in a game where, harp on it again and ring this bell again as I'm going to, it is too easy and needs to stop being made easier. Bethesda, this is not the right move. They are saying that they're putting in new content on down the line, subsequent updates, stuff like that, that are going to provide more challenging options for higher level endgame players, that sort of thing. But the tone still seems to be that that's going to be part of the raid system and stuff that, basically, is my feeling on that. So, yeah, not happy there, but it is what it is. Fixed an issue with the Cavaliers mod where players took increased damage instead of less damage when blocking. And they fixed the grammatical thing in Manhunt that I didn't even notice despite having done that a few times recently. So the combat rebalancing is where it gets interesting. Big thing here is most pistols have had a damage buff. Mostly this is to reflect the fact that there are perk changes, and the perk changes mean that formerly pistol exclusive perks are no longer pistol exclusive, and they don't buff the damage of pistols. As such, there are buffs to pistol damage in order to offset the effect of this perks. So there's 2 points here. Firstly, that basically means pistols aren't getting the buff that they appear to be getting. They are basically staying the same. Sort of. Which kind of sucks, because then if they're not really getting any better, then they remain garbage and not really worth using. So that sucks. However, and an important point, some of these do also include in them a damage buff above and beyond what was available from perks. So some of them actually are getting a buff. Specifically, I don't know which ones, because it'll be some of these, but not all of them. It's not marked out in that way. Also, other perks will now affect pistols as well in a number of different ways. So from your perks, you can get more benefits onto being a pistol build as well. So if you do want to do this, and if a pistol build is something you've always had your eye on, maybe look into it. Chances are it's not going to be a boss-killing build. It's just never going to go that way, I don't think. I mean, I may end up eating my words on that one day, but I really doubt they'll take it to the level where pistols are going to be much cop against bosses. But in terms of the run and gun, when you're just taking out the low-level mobs that are all over the map, it might be fine for that if you want to just, change up your style and have a bit of a breath of fresh air. So maybe have a look into some of that. It might be a bit more viable, but you may have to have a bit of a non-conventional approach to it rather than just relying on straight obvious damage numbers. You might have to get extra damage from sort of secondary sources in some ways. But yeah, not quite as exciting as it appeared in the first case. So, most pistols have been modified to incorporate damage that they would deal by perks into their base damage, since perks no longer offer pistol-specific damage increases. In addition to this, a few pistols have received further damage increases to their base damage. Following weapons can be converted into rifles via mods, so by putting a long barrel on them, things like that, and thus will have their base damage further increased in the future. In the future, not today. So, those are pipe gun, pipe revolver, pipe bolt action, so all the pipes, laser guns, ultrasight laser guns, plasma guns, and concave plasma guns. So, yeah, they're the only ones that do both pistols and rifle forms. So the weapon damage changes, I'm not going to go through every single number because we'll be here all day, but the weapons that are affected, if you really want to look at this, then you can pause, I suppose, and kind of dive into the numbers if you want to. If that's your thing. It's definitely not mine. In general, you just need to know that these are all going up, and that is the 10mm, the 44 revolver, alien blaster, black powder pistol, crusader pistol, circuit breaker, salvage assaultron head, western revolver, gamma gun, Gauss pistol, single action revolver, and pipe revolver. So those all getting damage increases. Weapon action point cost changes. So these are mostly coming down. There's a couple of unique things, the pipe gun and the 10mm will no longer benefit from a reduced AP cost from attaching automatic receivers. However, they are receiving fairly sizable dips to their AP cost anyway, so there's a certain amount of offset there anyway. So this will affect pipe guns, 10 mils, circuit breaker, 44, alien blaster, crusader pistol, combat shotgun, which is outside of the pistol set. That's also getting an AP reduction. Western revolver, double-barreled shotgun, and cold shoulder, listed separately because the numbers are different because cold shoulder is more powerful than a conventional one. Gauss pistol, plasma gun, enclave plasma gun, gamma gun, pipe revolver, Gunther's big iron, Gauss shotgun. Also getting an AP reduction. I think there's a few people who'll be pleased to see that. Laser guns, pump action shotguns, single action revolvers, and ultrasight laser gun. Okay. So VAT's critical damage multiplier changes. Certain weapons are getting a buff to their VAT's critical multiplier. And all of these are buffs, but again, this is pretty much just pistols, I think? Yeah, it is just pistols on here. So basically, the base VAT's critical damage multiplier for each weapon is being changed, and perks and other buffs and mods and the like can further increase these values. So, 10mm circuit breaker, 44 revolver, alien blaster, black powder pistol, crusader pistol, single action revolver, salvage assaultron head, western revolver, gamma gun, Gauss pistol, pipe bolt action, pipe gun, only when semi-automatic, and pipe revolver, all getting buffs to their base VATS critical damage. And it kind of annoys me that they specify it's a VATS critical, because that's the only type of critical damage there is, which is still annoying to me who doesn't use VATS. Rant. Anyway, weapon sneak attack multiplier changes. So, a handful of weapons, only a short list, but these will also be getting buffs to their sneak damage multipliers. That'll be 10 mils, alien blaster, crusader pistol, pipe bolt action, and pipe guns, all getting an increase in their sneak attack damage. So, random jump from that to events. There is one event getting a fix, that is dangerous pastimes. The countdown timer at the first stage, when you run in and go and talk to the guy with the really dodgy accent. That timer was really quite short, and if you didn't start it fast enough, the conversation that you have with the guy alone could be enough to fail the event. So they've increased the length of that timer, so that shouldn't happen quite so often, hopefully. Legendary mods. There are a number of changes here. Most of these are bug fixes, and so not massively exciting. If there's specific stuff here you want to take a look at, we'll hopefully touch on that. But fixed a bug causing legendary mod boxes to drop on death. Fixed an issue which could cause the Pounders mod to do more damage than intended, so technically a nerf, but it's a bug fix. Battle loaders will no longer activate when attacking players or teammates. Fixed an issue with Defenders mod, where players took increased damage while blocking. Whoops. Conductors now effectively grants 5% health and AP on successful crits. And here's the cool thing. Legendary mod boxes, so those are the loose mods that you then subsequently attach to a weapon or armor or whatever it may be. They can now be scrapped if you don't need them in order to get back legendary modules. Now, depending on the rating, obviously you get a different number of modules. This won't mean that crafting them and then scrapping them is profitable, but it's a thing you can do. Especially if you've got loose ones from scrapping that are just not going to sell and you're not going to use, so that should free up some room in your stash box as well, so that's nice. You will also have a chance to learn the plans by scrapping box mods, same as you would if you scrapped the weapon with them attached, which wasn't previously a thing, so that's nice to have as well. There is a caveat here though, that is absolutely do not bulk scrap box mods, because there is currently a bug wherein you will only get one opportunity to learn them instead of one opportunity per box if you bulk scrap. So if you're going to scrap these, do them one at a time until Bethesda are able to get a fix out for this issue. It is mentioned at the bottom of the list here, but I'm going to mention it here because it's relevant right now. So yeah, if you're going to scrap box mods, do it only one at a time, not in bulk. Arms Keeper's getting a change, which is to say it no longer applies to grenades. So this is the legendary effect that reduces weapon weights. It will continue to affect everything else, but grenade weapon weights will no longer be included. I know there's a few people who are upset by that, but basically it just means you won't be able to run around with thousands and thousands of grenades on your person without being over-encumbered. Which, I don't know why they're doing this. I'm wondering if it might be a performance issue thing. The other thing it could be is a griefing issue. If you can't carry so many, it's harder to abuse grenades and annoy other players with them. That might be a thing. This is just wild speculation on my part, but nonetheless, you won't be able to carry as many as you could before. It's not the end of the world. Just craft them as you need them. You know, instead of crafting 1,000 at a time, craft 10 at a time. Yeah, you'll have to do it a bit more often, but most people are back and forth from the camps quite a bit anyway, so just craft them when you're there. It's a bit more busy work, but it is what it is. It's not as big a deal as it has on occasion been made out, I think, even if it is a minor inconvenience. Cavaliers getting a tweak, so that should no longer be bugged. Sentinels also getting a bug fix, so that should work as intended. Furious, this is a big one, because this is designed to set up a new build type. So the Furious effect now gives you stacks of onslaught, and that is a 5% damage buff per stack, up to a max of 9 stacks. And this stacks with new Gunslinger and Gorilla perks, which have been changed. Basically, each consecutive hit on an enemy gives a stack of onslaught, and up to a maximum of 9. And I do have some questions here. Stacks expire once per second, so after 10 seconds they will all disappear, unless you continue hitting them, which will presumably back up another stack behind it. And players have an initial limit of 0 and can increase this through perks and items. Effects granted per stack can also be modified by perks and items. So this is what I'm kind of curious about. 5 per stack up to max of 9 would give you, 45% damage buff. If you can increase beyond that, potentially, by using perks and stuff, which I've seen suggested you can, The ceiling could get silly high and make the build ridiculously powerful. And it also says it starts at 0. So does having an Onslaught Legendary automatically put that number up to 9? Or do you need additional perks in order to take advantage of that? I guess, because it says perks and items, you get your Furious Weapon and it'll give you 9, and then maybe you can use perks to increase that number and put the damage output even higher. I'm not entirely sure. This is not very well worded and explained. I think it'll be easy to see exactly what is going on in-game. I hope there's a thing in the Pip-Boy that will actually cover this in a bit more clarity. I'll show you how many max stacks you can have and things like that, so you can check more easily. Because otherwise it's a bit of a mess, potentially. Yeah. Either way, potentially a different type of build that you can do with a kind of focused fire theme, which is nice. Hopefully that will be a high enough damage output, fast enough, and can be maintained to make it a worthwhile thing. Because, yeah, the number of viable endgame builds is, well, there's always room for more, let's put it that way. So, Pounders. This legendary effect has been reworded for Onslaught and has an issue with its stack limit fixed. It can give you plus 10% damage per Onslaught stack and plus 10 maximum stacks. So, because these two are in contrast to each other, 9 max stacks or plus 10 max stacks, I'm guessing you can buff it beyond that 9, which suggests that the maximum damage output possible for Onslaught is in fact ridiculously high. Yeah, it's really not very well explained, this, but it looks like you can potentially get a stupid high damage output with Onslaught if you stack enough things in the right way. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if this gets pulled back a number over time, like maybe the damage per stack thing comes down, for example, because 5% there plus 10% damage per stack, yeah, that could go crazy high very quickly. Which is good in the sense that it really does open up a new potential build option, but it might be a bit silly. Still, we'll see what happens in time. I would have thought they would have tested this out over the PTS, but it depends how much time people are putting into it and how much data they can get back, I suppose. So the Safecrackers effect is getting a complete rework because nobody ever uses it, which makes sense. It gives you +1 to your lockpick and hacking skill. Yeah, before it just made it easier to lockpick things, which it wasn't particularly hard anyway, so this is quite nice in that it actually has a useful function. It means you don't need those perks anymore, so that's a win. Changes to magazines. Here's a fun one on power armor though. It now grants a flat +10 strength regardless of your current strength. So before, it set your strength to 10, I believe. Or something like that. Anyway, it set your strength to a specific number, whatever it was. But it could mean that when you got into power armor, your strength actually dropped, which was ridiculous and very annoying. Now it means a flat buff, which is a tiny little bit illogical given the way power armor works. But a flat buff makes it actually, a bit more sensible in that you will always become more powerful when you get into power armor. At least in terms of your strength. So yeah, I think that's good. And if you're going to do power armor, weapon damage, melee builds, then suddenly that's become a lot more viable of an option for sort of late games. And will tie in quite nicely to the Ghoul, I suspect. We should be able to put out some fiendishly high damage for endgame builds with things like auto axes, I would imagine, if you combine it with power armor, which is something I will probably look into as my new boss killing approach if I'm going to be running around with a shovel, as is plan A for the rest of the time. Mostly for the fun part of it. Anyway, perk changes. Going to go through this as rapidly as possible because it's very, very long. I recommend you take a minute to screenshot things and pause it and go through this individually because you're going to have to make a lot of changes here. I did do a video yesterday giving a bit of a heads up that there were a lot of changes. This is better organised, but I'll do another follow-up video to just go through what these changes are in more detail. But yeah, this is a list of 33 perks that are getting changed, so I can already see we're on a very long time for this video, so let's get to the nitty-gritty, and you may want to pause and screenshot and things. So, some names have been tweaked for better sorting. Onslaught now has a HUD indicator. Help entry has been added for Onslaught. Incidentally, if you want to find that and read more about it in-game, go to your map, go to the main menu, scroll down. There is a help thing. It's basically an encyclopedia of everything that you can do in the game. It tells you how things work. I always forget it's there. Bethesda do it for a lot of their games. All of them, I think, really. And it is a useful resource that you can dive into if you want to know how things work. So, yeah, it's there. There is now an entry there for Onslaught. And one for small guns as well, interestingly. Updated thing on that to explain how that works with your perception stat. And there is an option to disable the unopened perk card pack prompt. Very, very happy about that. That's very, very annoying having that come up every time you open the perk menu. So you won't have that anymore. Starting loadouts have been adjusted to accommodate perk card changes, and they fixed an issue where perk cards showed only one rank value when unequipped. So yeah, number of useful little fixes. So here are those perks, and I'm just going to list the names, and as I say, I strongly suggest you take your time to go through this on your own because it's a lot. Arms Keeper is getting changed, as we've mentioned some of that already. Awareness, again. Barbarian, Bodyguards, Demolition Expert. It's only a little change there, but it's nice to have anyway. Cap Collector, Can Do. Concentrated Fire is changing, no longer grants limb targeting. Crackshot, Field Surgeon is just getting moved. Farmer, Gun Fu, Good with Salt. Gorilla, Gorilla Expert, Gorilla Master. Gunslinger, Gunslinger Expert, Gunslinger Master, so these no longer just affect pistols, they have multiple different effects. Gun Runner now works with any ranged weapon. Home Defense has been changed. So Inspirational has been changed, it's been simplified, and it's based on your charisma and only affects you and your team members rather than everybody in the area. Ironclad's getting changed. Lead Belly, Modern Renegade, Mr. Sandman, Pack Rat, Packing Light, Farmer, Portable Power, Rad Resistant, Rejuvenated, Scrounger. Ooh, there's a slight error with the way that this is set out there. Spiritual Healer, Strongback, Tank Killer, Tenderizer, Travelling Pharmacy, and Wrecking Ball. Camp Builders, look at Wrecking Ball. This one is a big one for us. So, there we go. Yeah, we'll go back up and give you another chance to quickly screenshot these if you would like to. There we go. Okay, stick this down here. And again. There we go, that should give you a chance to screenshot if you want. So, quests. A whole bunch of quest-related fixes. If you are having specific issues with the quests, take a little look at this section. They're not massively exciting. Some of it tied into Skyline Valley and a couple of other little bits and pieces as well, but not massive changes really. A couple of UI fixes here as well. Player titles lining up and Radix getting a bit more clarity to it, which is nice. Nothing particularly exciting. Weapons. So, the V63 Laser Carbine is now going to be available for all players who've acquired it, no matter how they picked it up. There are a couple of ways to get hold of this thing, and some of them weren't granting the ability to craft it, apparently. You will now be able to do that if you have access to it. Something I would like to have used, but it doesn't have sights, and as I don't use that, so that makes it somewhat useless. A whole bunch of little bits and pieces. Most of this is not majorly affecting the way things change, but they're more like visual bugs, so interesting bits and pieces there. A couple of useful things to know about. And a bunch of random miscellaneous fixes that are, from the look of it, somewhat intermittent as well, because I've not run into some of these issues, even though potentially I could have done. So nice bits there. And we'll jump on to the known issues to wrap this out with, because bulk scrapping legendary mods, if you scrap them in bulk, you will get only one opportunity to learn the legendary effect, rather than one opportunity or one roll of the dice, effectively, per individual mod that you are scrapping. So basically, don't bulk scrap them one by one if you want to get the best opportunity to learn the mod when you scrap it. This doesn't affect weapons so much, because you still have to do those one by one, or armor or whatever, but for box mods, make sure you don't bulk scrap them until they're able to fix this. Another useful thing, if you're becoming a ghoul, there is an inconsistency with legendary perk behaviour. So when you become a ghoul, a couple of legendary perks that are available to human players should be locked out, and the ghoul-specific ones should become available. What's happening here, apparently, is that will not necessarily update in the way it should when you transform into a ghoul. If this happens to you, you simply need to log all the way out the game, close your game down, and log back in, and it should be fine the next time. And again, hopefully, they should be able to fix that soon. So, there we go. I had to skate over a few little details here and there because this is a big old set of patch notes and I could see a very big number down there on the screen. So I'm going to wrap up relatively quickly. I'm going to follow this up with a video on perk changes specifically, so for those who want to go through that in more detail later. And the other thing I wanted to look at and do a specific video on was the level 50 character boost. When we get a bit more information on that, I will bring you some information in a separate one. That one I will probably do first, and I'll do the perk cards afterwards, because there are other videos and you can also screenshot from here as well. So this is probably a more sensible order to approach that in. Yeah, massive overhaul. Looking forward to playing this one. We'll see what time it actually ends up being, because it's going to take me a while to edit this big old video. So yeah, I hope it's useful and informative to you. Hats off to you if you made it to the end. I very much appreciate. Give me a shout in the comments if you made it to this point. I do very much appreciate and admire it because, yeah, that's some patience. Thumbs up. Thank you. Likes, subs, always appreciated if you haven't already, especially if you've got this far because, well, you can't have hated it that much, can you? Well, maybe you did. Maybe you're a masochist. I don't know. Anyway, do appreciate all that good stuff. Channel memberships down there, social media links, all that if you want to check it out. Join us for live streams. Fallout live streams are incoming. Looking forward to jumping into the Ghoul. And, of course, we're playing some other stuff as well. Avowed, we've got on the go at the minute. I'm really enjoying that game. It's been good fun. And Atomfall comes out next week. And I'm dying to get my hands on a post-apocalyptic, investigative RPG type thing that looks quite unique and set in the English Lake District. So, yeah, I am so down for that. From the creators of Sniper Elite, incidentally. Yeah, very, very excited. So, lots of cool things happening. For now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.